of course, take the kid out of the 80s, but you can't take the 80s out of the kid. Squealing, harmonics, and eighth notes and all that good stuff. Anyways, you heard this device on that track at the beginning of the video on all the guitar parts and on the bass guitar. This is the Two Notes Torpedo Cab M. This is an updated version of the original Two Notes Torpedo Cab unit, which was pretty actually revolutionary for the time because it was one of the very first impulse response loading cabinet simulators in kind of a small format that would actually fit on a pedal board.
This guy did a demo of it way back in 2013. Look at this guy. Get a haircut, dude.
So this is even smaller, the new Torpedo Cab M unit. This does high-quality speaker simulation via its use of convolution technology or impulse responses for speaker cabinet and microphone emulation. Which makes it really useful for both playing live and using in the recording studio for getting high-quality mic'd-up guitar cabinet tones without needing microphones and preamplifiers and stuff like that. Incidentally, this is not a load box, so if you want to use it with a high-power guitar amplifier, what you're going to need is you're going to need some sort of load box to load your amp safely down to line level, and then you can use this just to host the impulse responses or speaker cabinet simulation.
Two Notes makes a wide range of high-quality load boxes as well, including the Torpedo Captor series. In this video, I'm using a Sur reactive load.
This also does a few other things. It's got really great reverb in it. It's got equalization. It's also got power amp modeling in it. So what's that for? Well, if you want to say use like a guitar preamp and then run it into this, and this will handle the power amp simulation, simulating like the tone of 6L6 tubes or EL34 tubes. You can drive them a little bit less, drive them harder, whatever you want. Get some of that power amp grind incorporated in your tone if you're using some sort of preamp to run into this. I'm not doing that today in this video. I used big guitar amplifiers, loaded them down using a reactive load box, the Sur reactive load, and I took an unfiltered out of the Sur reactive load, plugged it into the Two Notes Torpedo Cab M, used this for all the cabinet sounds as well as some equalization and reverb, and then I took a line out of this, balanced line out, and ran right into my recording interface. So I'm going to solo all the parts from the song at the beginning of the video outside of the mix, detail how I got the different tones, what amplifiers I was using, as well as the speaker cabinet and microphone, virtual speaker cabinet and microphone choices that I used via the Two Notes Torpedo Cab M. I also want to play a little bit more through the unit, and you're going to see live on your screen as I'm talking in real time and as I'm turning some knobs and stuff, the software app working, so you can see what the different controls do in the software app. I'm a big fan of software these days. Rather than getting deep, into the unit and the menus and stuff on the little screen, if a unit's got software and I can plug it into my computer and control it that way, I love that. So that's what you're going to see me doing today. But know that you can do everything that you can do in the software app in this unit itself, okay? So that if you're at a gig or something like that and you want to do something like, say, change the microphone type that's on a certain virtual speaker cabinet you're using, you can do that in the unit. You don't need the software to do that. If you want to change the microphone position or something like that and get a little bit darker or a little bit brighter by virtually moving the microphone on the cabinet, you can do all that stuff within the Torpedo Cab M. I'm just going to do it using the Torpedo remote software for the purposes of this video. So a couple more things about the Torpedo Cab M. It's got a 1/4-inch line input. You can also actually plug the output out of your guitar speaker out directly into this. You're just going to need to run through the unit right into a load box or another speaker cabinet. Always have a load connected when using this unit with a tube guitar amplifier. You want to make sure you've got something connected to protect your amplifier and dissipate the energy coming out of the amp. On the other side over here, we got a balanced XLR line output, and there's also a 1/4-inch out. There's also a headphone jack. There's also an 1/8-inch auxiliary in jack on the left side of the unit. Okay, let's get into it. It's the Torpedo Cab M from the folks at Two Notes.
So I just want to show you some cool stuff about the application. You can see the microphone moving around in front of the speaker cabinet there. I'm actually just grabbing it with my mouse and moving it around. I just think that's so cool. You can move the mic sort of closer or further back, more on axis, more off axis. You can also adjust them using the knobs and the faders, of course, over on the left side of the app there, but it's just fun to grab them and move them around. Now I'm going to show you a couple of the different rooms here. You can select some different spaces, Studio A, Studio B. There's smaller spaces, bigger spaces, darker spaces, more lively, really ambient spaces. And there's just a really nice variety of different reverb and room sounds available. I find the EQ also really useful. There's 3 different EQ settings. You'll notice when I switch from like guitar to a bass preset, for example, here the low band, for example, switches from 100 hertz to 50 hertz. So the frequencies are all different when you switch to a bass preset. And they're just set at kind of really optimum frequencies for the respective instrument, guitar or bass. There's also the power amp simulation, which I didn't get into in my video since I'm using tube amps with power amplifiers, but you can see there's a whole wide variety of push-pull and single-ended power amps, KT88s and EL34s and 6L6s, and you'll get depth and presence controls and a volume control, and you can drive that up and actually drive the power section into a virtual modeled power amp overdrive, which is pretty cool if you're using like a preamp or preamp type pedal. Now I'm hitting the button labeled IR loader. This is what the screen looks like when you've got IRs loaded in a preset for Cab Sim. So I loaded some of my own IRs that I like, some Sir Celestion ones. And of course you won't be able to take advantage of the moving the microphones around and stuff. You need to use the 2 notes cabinets for that. But you can load your own IRs and use up to 2 at a time in a preset. And you can use IRs of up to 200 milliseconds in length.
Okay, so I want to talk about the 2 rhythm guitar parts that are hard panned, the dirty rhythm guitar parts from the song at the beginning of the video. So I'm using my Shure SL68, which is an old Plexi style amplifier. It's on about 8 on the bright channel volume, so cranked up good, and all the gains coming from the amp. I'm plugged right into the amplifier, and then I'm coming speaker out of the amp into my Shure reactive load to load the amp down to line level. I'm taking the unfiltered output out of that right into the Torpedo Cab M, which is right here on my desk. And then I'm taking the output of the Torpedo Cab M and running it right into Logic via my UA interface. Now, I've got the Cab M hooked up to my computer via USB so that I can use the Torpedo remote software to do all the editing of the cabinet sounds and EQ and reverb and fun stuff like that. So I used, for the 2 different hard pan guitars, a couple different settings. So I just want to talk about that for a second and demonstrate it. So on one sound, I'm using one of the 2 notes cabinets, the Randall NB412, which is Nuno Betancourt 412, and I believe it's got greenback speakers in it. On the mix of the song, I'm using a little bit of EQ and I'm using the reverb in the Torpedo. I've got those turned off right now. I just want you to hear the cabinet. It's mic'd with a dynamic 421 mic, and I got it set at about 15% off axis, and the distance is at 0, so it's right up on the cabinet. Here's how it sounds. Love that. I mean, I love greenbacks, and that really captures that tone to me. It sounds really good. I like this Nuno Betancourt cabinet quite a bit, especially with the 421, which isn't normally a favorite mic of mine, actually. But, you know, in this sort of virtual world, it sounds really terrific on this cabinet. Now, if you find that's a little bright, you can simply just move the axis control. I'll take it up to, say, 25%, move the mic off axis. And you can hear the high end getting a little bit duller. I'm going to take it all the way up to, say, 35% or so. Okay, so it gets really, really easy to just fine-tune the tone using just the axis of the microphone. I like it for the cut, though, set around 15%, just off axis. And then let's move the distance around a little bit. So I'll take the mic back a little bit, and you'll hear kind of the proximity effect, the bass boost will lessen a little bit of when the mic's right up on the cab. Just changes the tone. I find it can be cool sometimes to move the microphone back to get some Jimmy Page kind of tones. It'll kind of filter the mids out in kind of a cool way and thin the tone out, but in a useful way for some sound. Okay, so setting the distance back to 0, so it's close mic'd. I got my punchy rock guitar tone that way. I'm going to turn on the EQ now, and you can hear what I'm doing with the EQ here in the software.
Okay, so what I'm doing is basically dropping the lows just a little bit, and I'm bringing up 2K and 6K by just like a dB or two each. And that's just adding a little bit of cut and taking a little bit of woof out of the guitar sound. I'll turn off the EQ. Okay, it's nice and fat without the EQ, but it can probably get to be a little bit much within a song building up. So when I just dropped the bass about 3 or 4 dB, I found it cleaned that up a little bit. And I mean, you can get dramatic with it. I'll pull it all the way out. And it starts sounding like a combo instead of a 412. I'll bring it back up to minus 4 dB because I liked it there. Okay, so that's pretty cool. Now I'll turn on the reverb. So this is a really great sounding reverb, I think, for just kind of a roomy guitar tone. It's not so much a reverb as it sounds like early reflection, you know, like a room to me. It's a small, tight room, really. So, and it sounds really realistic to me. I'll set it all the way 100% wet, actually. Sounds really cool. I mean, you can really blend it in at quite a hot level. So I had it at 50% for the song at the beginning of the video. Okay, so pretty cool. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the preset that I used for the other cabinet sound. So the amp sound was exactly the same, and I'll go to my Torpedo. It's a preset I made right here, and now you're going to hear how the cabinet changes. Okay, so what this is its impulse responses that I loaded in, actually. So this is the Celestion impulse responses of some Sir cabinets. It's a V30 loaded 412, and it's also greenback loaded 412, and they're blended together, mostly the greenback cabinet. So I can easily just mute them within the software. Okay, so here's the greenback cabinet by itself. Okay, and then I can easily change the level of that, kind of move it around. Here's the V30 cabinet. So you can hear I had it at a lot lower level, and it's just kind of blending in and giving me a little bit more cut and a little bit more of that V30 thing, and here's what it sounds like with both cabinets, right? So pretty cool. Now, on the EQ, I've got it in, and I'm barely doing anything. I think I'm boosting bass 1 dB. I'm cutting 360, which is the next frequency band, kind of low mids, 1 dB. And then I'm boosting 6K 1 dB. So I'm barely doing anything, but just kind of tailoring the sound just a little bit. That's no EQ, and I'll turn it on now. It makes a little bit of a difference. A little bit goes a long way. And then with the reverb sound, once again, I'm in the Studio A room, and I've got a little bit of it mixed in, not quite as much as with what I had with the Randall Nuno Betancourt cabinet. I'll just turn off the verb. And back on. So once again, another really credible greenback sound, 412 cabinet sound with a little bit of V30s mixed in, coming via the Celestion impulse responses. And it's super easy to just load those into the cab M, and then you can use the internal cabinets or use impulse responses. You use whatever you want. It's pretty neat, pretty easy to do, and the software works great. It's just simple, easy to use, easy to subtly tweak the EQ and call up different cabinets, and completely change microphone sounds if you want to. So it's really fun to work with.
So a little bit about the bass tone. I'm using my Warwick Streamer bass here. I'm just on the P pickup, and I'm running into my Line 6 Helix, which is back here in my rack. And I'm using a high watt style amp model as well as an SVT style amp model, blending them into one sound, and there's no cab simulation in the Helix on right now, it's off. So I'm coming out of one output on the Helix into the 2 notes Torpedo Cab M, and controlling once again the Cab M via the Torpedo software. And so what I'm doing is using the Fat Mama 410 cabinet. You can see I got it dialed up right here. Sounds really cool. I'm using 2 microphones on the cabinet, the Dynamic Bass 20 as well as a Condenser 840 it says. And it just sounded really cool to me dialed up that way. So I can show you kind of the way it sounds here with the cab and without first of all. So with the cab, that's just kind of rock bass tone I got dialed up like that. Turning off the cab sim in the Torpedo Cab M. Obviously way too bright. This is the Fat Cab again, Fat Mama Cab. Okay, a couple other things I'm doing. I'm adding just a little bit of room to the sound in the software and in the Cab M. So I'm using the Studio A, which I like quite a bit because it adds some ambience, but it's also tight sounding. It's not too roomy. And if I turn it off, it sounds like this. And turning it on, just adds a little bit of air to the bass tone I like. Sometimes I like just a little bit of hint of room on bass. It just kind of, you know, it spreads the bass out a little bit without losing too much of the tightness and the fat kind of up the middle mono character you want out of a bass tone. A little bit of room can be helpful to just give it a little bit of ambience, of course. I've got the EQ on a little bit as well, and I'm boosting a little bit of 50 Hertz, dialed back the 120 just a little bit to leave some room for the chunky guitars. 800 Hertz is dialed up just a little bit as well, so a little bit of mids and a little bit of subby lows I've got dialed in. Good people, thanks for watching my video on the 2 notes Torpedo Cab M, high quality convolution and impulse response based speaker cabinet and microphone simulation, as well as reverb, equalization, power amp modeling, integrated application. There's all kinds of great stuff about this thing. 2 Notes is a name you can trust. They've been doing this stuff for a long time and they're really good at it. I had a lot of fun using this thing, and if you want to find out more info about it, check it out at that website that you see there on your screen. Please hit subscribe if you haven't. Hit the thumbs up on the video if you dug it. I'd really appreciate it. And come back and see me for more videos real soon. I'm Pete Thorn. Take care.